Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It all started on a regular Tuesday evening. The kind where the world outside felt just a little too quiet, and inside the house, something unspoken lingered in the air. Ayan and Meera had been married for 7 years. They weren't new to each other's habits, tempers, or moods. But that night, something felt different. They were both fully dressed, sitting side by side on the edge of the bed, their fingers occasionally brushing but not holding. The TV played some old rom-com in the background, but neither of them paid it much attention. The real story was unfolding in silence between them. Ayan wore his favorite gray hoodie, the one Meera always teased him about. Meera, still in her office blouse and fitted jeans, had her hair tied in a messy bun, nothing fancy, yet something about her felt incredibly magnetic in that moment. They weren't arguing. They weren't laughing either. It was just them. A quiet electricity passed between their glances. A reminder of the bond that had gotten buried under daily routines and responsibilities. 7 years into a marriage changes things. You stop doing the dramatic gestures, and instead, the little things start to matter more. Like the way Meera remembered to charge Ayan's phone when he forgot. Or how Ayan made sure there was always extra sugar in the jar, just how Meera liked her tea. It was these subtle acts that had kept them together, but also hidden something they had both been too scared to face. Tonight, it wasn't about touch or passion. It was about connection. Real, deep, emotional connection. Even though they were fully clothed, even though no words of romance were spoken, they were slowly leaning into each other's space in a way that said everything. Their knees touched. Their eyes lingered. The air between them thickened with unspoken feelings. Meera exhaled softly, and Ayan noticed. He turned toward her, and in that one glance, they both knew, the moment they'd been avoiding was here. This wasn't just about physical intimacy. It was about opening up a chapter they had left half-written long ago. The tension wasn't uncomfortable, it was exciting. Old memories mixed with new feelings. And before either of them could say anything, the line between friendship, marriage, and rediscovery started to blur. And then, just as Ayan reached for her hand, not to pull, not to persuade, but just to feel, it happened. That one small gesture set everything in motion. Their connection deepened. Not through undressing or desire, but through presence. Fully dressed, fully aware, fully involved. And yet, they went all the way. Emotionally. Spiritually. Romantically. But right at that moment, before Meera could respond, there was a sudden knock at the door. A knock that neither of them expected, and it would change everything. The knock echoed through the room like a question no one was ready to answer. Meera flinched slightly, and Ayan instinctively moved his hand back, as if they'd been caught doing something wrong, though all they had done was sit close, breathe the same moment, and feel something return that had been lost in time. Their eyes met again, this time with a silent agreement. Neither of them wanted the moment to end, but life doesn't always wait for timing. "Are you expecting someone?" Meera asked softly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Ayan shook his head, puzzled. It was already past 10, and their door rarely saw surprise visitors. He stood up, slowly, unsure whether to open it or ignore it. The knock came again. Firm, but not aggressive. Like someone who knew them. Like someone who had something to say. In the minutes that followed, everything felt slower. The warmth between Ayan and Meera faded into a colder sort of anticipation. The kind that carried weight. The kind that made hearts thud harder. While Ayan walked toward the door, Meera stayed seated on the bed, her fingers gripping the bedsheet unconsciously, still feeling the electricity of what had almost happened. They were a modern couple, practical, independent, often caught up in work, bills, and social expectations. Meera worked in interior design and spent most of her time visualizing other people's dream homes while ignoring the silence in her own. Ayan managed a small tech startup from home. Lately, he had been talking more to his laptop than to his wife. And yet, somewhere beneath all the layers of their everyday life, the bond still lived. It just hadn't been spoken to in a while. The door finally opened. Ayan's face changed slightly. He didn't say anything at first. Meera got up, sensing something off. She walked toward him slowly, and just as she came to his side, she saw the person standing at the door. Her eyes narrowed. Her smile faded. A mix of recognition and confusion crossed her face. Because the person who had just arrived wasn't a stranger, it was someone from their past. Someone who knew them both. Someone who had once been very close to Meera. The moment hung in the air like a tight string, waiting to snap. Nothing had been said yet. But something had just shifted, and Meera could feel it in her chest. Meera didn't say a word. Her feet stopped a few steps from the door, and her eyes locked with the visitors. For a few seconds, it felt like the world had stopped breathing. The person standing there was Rhea, Meera's old college friend. Once inseparable, but now just a faded name she hadn't thought about in years. But Rhea wasn't just from Meera's past. She had also known Ayan, too well, in fact. Rhea smiled like nothing had changed, her tone too casual for the moment. "Hi. I was in the city, thought I'd stop by." She looked between the two of them, reading the tension in the room. Meera forced a polite smile, hiding the storm brewing beneath her calm face. "It's been a long time," Meera replied, her voice more steady than she felt. Ayan stepped aside to let Rhea in, his hand brushing against Meera's lightly, as if to say he didn't expect this either. Rhea walked in slowly, observing the familiar walls, the familiar faces, and the unfamiliar distance between them. She used to know this house, used to be here during the early days of Ayan and Meera's relationship. Back when things were simple. Back when smiles didn't carry secrets. Meera watched her carefully. She wasn't angry, not yet. But she was alert. Her body was still carrying the warmth of the quiet moment she and Ayan had just shared. And now, that warmth was being replaced by old questions that hadn't been asked in years. As they sat in the living room, Rhea began talking about her life, her travels, her job. But everything felt like small talk. Like a delay tactic. Like she wasn't here just to catch up. Ayan nodded along, listening, but Meera noticed the shift in his posture. He wasn't completely at ease either. That was the part that troubled her most. Later that evening, when Rhea excused herself to freshen up, Meera turned to Ayan. "You knew she was coming?" she asked, her voice quiet but sharp. Ayan shook his head. "No. I haven't heard from her in years." Meera wanted to believe him. Part of her did. But the timing, the mood, the way Ayan's hand had briefly trembled when Rhea walked in, something didn't feel right. That night, sleep didn't come easy. Rhea had decided to stay the night, claiming she was too tired to drive. Meera said nothing, even though her chest tightened with every minute that passed. She lay beside Ayan, both of them silent, their backs turned. And in the room down the hall, the past was sleeping under their roof, threatening to wake parts of their marriage they had just started to revive. Outside, the night deepened. But inside, hearts stayed restless. Nothing had been said outright. No accusations. No explanations. But something had begun unraveling. Slowly. Quietly. And neither of them knew what tomorrow would bring. The morning after Rhea's unexpected arrival was quieter than usual. The house felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding back conversations. Meera stood by the kitchen window, watching the sun rise through the misted glass, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't taken a sip from. Her mind was racing, but her face stayed calm. From the corner of her eye, she could see Rhea in the hallway, casually scrolling her phone, as if she belonged there. As if the years that had passed, and all the things left unsaid, didn't matter anymore. Ayan entered the kitchen, still in his t-shirt from the night before. Meera didn't look at him. He stood beside her, silent for a few moments, before speaking. I don't know why she's here, Meera. I swear I didn't know. His voice was low, almost cautious. Meera gave a small nod, still not turning to him. But you once did know her, very well. Her words weren't angry, just honest. But they carried weight. Later that day, the three of them found themselves sitting in the living room again, this time, with less conversation. Rhea finally broke the silence. You both look like strangers to each other. What happened? Her voice was calm, but her eyes watched Meera too closely. Meera didn't answer. Instead, she asked what had been sitting at the edge of her thoughts all night. Why are you really here, Rhea? Rhea smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. I missed you both. I missed how we used to be. She looked at Ayan when she said that, just a second too long. Meera caught it. Ayan noticed, too. The moment cracked something open in the room. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was full of questions, memories, tension. Then Rhea said something Meera didn't expect. Sometimes I wonder if the wrong people ended up together. Her voice was soft, but the meaning landed like thunder. Meera's heart dropped. Ayan sat up straight. It wasn't just a comment. It was a confession. Maybe even a challenge. Just then, Ayan's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen and froze. Meera leaned in to see. One message. From a name she didn't recognize. But the words were enough to pull every thread tight. Meera stared at the phone screen. Just one message, but it changed everything. Rhea, I miss you too. I haven't stopped thinking about that night. The sender's name, Kiran, meant nothing to her. But the look on Rhea's face when Ayan opened the message was unmistakable. It wasn't just surprise, it was panic. And for the first time since her arrival, Rhea didn't have a smooth answer ready. Ayan slowly turned to her, the tension in the room crackling now. You gave him my number, he asked, his voice low, but firm. Rhea didn't respond immediately. She stood up, clearly flustered, pacing the room in silence. Meera watched her, emotions twisting in her chest, anger, confusion, and a deeper fear that this whole visit was about more than just nostalgia. Who is Kiran? Meera finally asked. Rhea opened her mouth to answer but paused, as if she knew the truth would only deepen the cracks. Kiran was my fiancé, she finally said. We broke it off 2 months ago. But before that, I showed him a picture of you both. And yes, I mentioned Ayan. Ayan's brow furrowed. Why would you? Because I told him about our past, Rhea snapped, then softened immediately. About everything. About how, once, I thought I was in love with you, Ayan. Before you and Meera got married. Meera's heartbeat thundered. The room felt smaller, tighter. So this isn't just a friendly visit, is it? She asked, standing up now too. You came here to, what? Stir things up? Or fix something you think went wrong? Rhea's eyes glistened, and for a second, the wall she'd kept up began to crack. I didn't plan any of this. I didn't know where else to go. Kiran and I ended things badly. He found those old messages. The ones between me and Ayan. He started to think, there was still something there. Ayan stepped back, visibly shaken. Messages? You kept those? Meera couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had come so close to reconnecting with Ayan just last night. And now, it felt like she didn't even know what parts of his past were still haunting their present. Rhea continued, he got obsessed. He's the one who sent the message. I haven't spoken to him since I came here. But he thinks you and I have unfinished business. The room was still for a moment, until a loud knock shook the silence. They all froze. Another knock. Firmer. Meera glanced at the door, then back at Rhea. "That's him, isn't it?" she whispered. Rhea didn't answer. But her silence was louder than any words. The door creaked open slowly, and standing outside was Kieran. Tall, sharp-eyed, and clearly tense. His eyes didn't scan the house, he looked straight at Rhea. "You blocked me," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "And then you disappeared. Now I know why." Ayan stood protectively beside Meera. Rhea took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I didn't come here for him," she said. "I came here for myself. To escape the mess you turned our relationship into." Kieran's voice grew colder. "You mean the mess you created? You never let go of Ayan. You kept talking about him. About how maybe things would have been different if you had made another choice." Meera watched the scene unfold, each word cutting deeper. She looked at Ayan, hoping for reassurance. "Is it true?" she asked softly. "Did you and Rhea ever talk again? After we got married?" Ayan's eyes didn't flinch. "Not once. We ended everything the day you and I got serious. I loved you, Meera. I still do." His voice shook, not from guilt, but from the weight of what had almost fallen apart. Kieran, however, wasn't ready to leave quietly. "Then explain those messages. Why did she keep them? Why did she keep your photos in her old phone?" Rhea turned to Kieran, finally confronting him. "Because they were part of my past. That's all. You turned them into something else. You're not here because you care. You're here because you couldn't control the narrative." Silence followed. Meera looked between them, then at Ayan. Slowly, she walked over to Rhea. "I think you came here hoping something would be different. That maybe Ayan would feel something. But I need you to understand, he's not the one who's confused. You are." Just then, Rhea's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. Meera caught a glimpse of the contact name, "Clinic, results ready." Her heart skipped. Rhea silenced it, but Meera stepped closer. "You're not just running from Kieran, are you?" Rhea's eyes widened slightly, her mask cracking. "It's not his. I just needed to be sure before saying anything." Meera inhaled slowly, realization hitting her. The story wasn't over. Not even close. Rhea's silence said everything. The ringing phone had exposed the truth she'd been hiding, not from Kieran or Ayan, but from herself. Her eyes softened, shoulders dropped, and for the first time since she arrived, she looked vulnerable. Meera stepped back, processing the final pieces of a story she hadn't even realized she was part of. Kieran's anger faded into disbelief. "Wait, you're saying you're pregnant?" he asked, voice quiet now. Rhea nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't plan for any of this. Not the breakup. Not this. I just panicked. I thought if I came here, I'd feel safe." Ayan stepped forward, his voice calm. "Rhea, this place, it's not your escape. It's our home. Whatever happened between us was over a long time ago. You have to stop running from the truth and start facing it." Rhea looked at Meera, her eyes full of regret. "I didn't come here to break you too. I just didn't know where else to go." Meera gave a small, understanding nod. "We all get lost sometimes. But we can't let the past control our future." Kieran took a slow breath, his face less tense now. "If the baby's mine, I'll be there. But you need to be honest from now on. No more games." Rhea nodded again, wiping a tear from her cheek. No more games. That night, Rhea quietly packed her things. There was no drama, no harsh goodbye. Just a quiet acceptance. As she left with Kieran, Ayan closed the door behind them and turned to Meera. The silence between them felt different now, cleared, lighter. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything this brought up." Meera walked over, reached for his hand, and smiled. "We were both dressed, and still went all the way. Not physically, but emotionally. We faced the truth, together." They sat back on the same bed where it had all started. This time, there was no awkward silence. Just warmth, trust, and a renewed sense of connection. Life wasn't perfect. But love, real love, was still alive. Viewers, how did this ending make you feel? Would you want to see a sequel where Rhea and Kieran's story continues? Drop your thoughts in the comments, we'd love to know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs a reminder that love, in its purest form, always finds its way.